You've broken up, but you're still helping your ex with many things. Today, I'll tell you why. In most cases, this is a very big mistake that undermines your chances of getting that person back. I'll also tell you about the one exception where you can actually still help your ex, and it's not a mistake. My name is Robert Marshall. I'm the founder of the Relationship Psychology Institute, and every day, along with my team of psychologists, we help save relationships after a breakup where only one person wants to fight for the relationship and the other has completely withdrawn and doesn't want to do anything about it. So everything I'm going to tell you today is knowledge from the front lines, where we're constantly working with clients on exactly these kinds of cases. If you've watched my materials before, you probably already know that an essential part of the strategy for getting an ex back is becoming a challenge, meaning you have to convince the other person that now you don't want it anymore, that now you're moving forward. There's no desperation. You start living your own life, and at any moment you could enter another relationship. And this is essential because until that person feels that they could lose you at any moment, nothing will have the right to happen. As long as they feel you're always within reach, those feelings that the person had for you until recently won't be able to revive. This is a very controversial topic that I've talked about much more extensively in other videos on my channel, but now I just wanted to point it out and mention it for new viewers who haven't heard about it yet, because it's essential to understanding why it's not worth helping an ex all the time after a breakup. Especially if you care about getting back together with that person. Many people after breaking up with an ex, especially men, still provide quite extensive help to that person. For example, they still contribute to the household budget to exactly the same extent, even though they had to move out and now live somewhere else. Or they regularly come to fix various things, even though they don't really have to do it, and they provide these services completely free of charge all the time. Or they keep paying for various things like phone bills, internet, because they have a card linked for electricity. They keep buying expensive birthday gifts and so on. I've heard stories many times where a guy, months after a breakup, was still paying the rent for his ex's apartment because he was afraid to tell her that he wouldn't pay anymore, that now she'd have to pay her own money. As a rule, any form of help towards your ex-girlfriend or your ex-boyfriend, because this works for both genders, is a big mistake. The greater the help, the bigger the mistake. However, there is one exception that makes it not worth stopping that help. And that exception is a situation where you feel that after the breakup, your ex is still very interested in you, and you're really close to getting back together. For example, your ex calls you herself to actually ask for help, but besides that help, she's keenly interested in you. She asks about what's going on with you. She tells you a bit more about herself, touches you every once in a while, and rather, that person uses the opportunity for you to help her as an occasion, even a pretext to see you. And then it's actually worth coming over, helping out, and starting to rebuild that relationship. However, when it comes to paying for a subscription or some other especially small thing, you don't have to stop paying for it. If you feel that you're actually close, that your ex is reaching out, suggesting meetings, and there's some touch or even intimacy between you at these meetings, and you see that it's sincere, that's very important. Then stopping such payments, especially for something small, isn't necessary because it could actually cause some additional hostility. It doesn't have to be that way, but then probably if everything's going okay, it's better not to touch it and then talk it over again once you're back together, whether that payment stays on your end or not. However, that's only one exception, and even then, if you stop those payments for any reason because you just decide you don't want to anymore, that's also okay, but then you have to be prepared to soften any potential hostility. However, in other situations, when you see that your ex isn't interested in you at all and asks for help, but doesn't even ask how you are, treating you almost like an object, you could say, then providing such help only makes your situation worse, and it's definitely not worth doing. If you're listening to these words and thinking, yeah, that's me, my ex isn't interested, but she keeps wanting things from me and is using me. Well, first of all, I'd like to reassure you. Don't feel bad about it. It's completely normal that if you care about this person, love them, and want to get back together, you want to help them too, even if they don't give as much back as you do. It's a completely human impulse. You're not stupid. You're not, worse than anyone else. It just means you're human. However, it's high time to understand that this is leading you nowhere. and eventually you have to stop it. And here, very good communication is truly key, which will also minimize the hostility that has a high chance of arising. Because if your ex is used to you helping all the time, and now you say no, that hostility can arise very easily, just like that. That's how people are. That's just our nature. You have to prepare for it and know how to minimize it, and we'll talk about that in a moment. If it was just occasional help and every now and then your ex wanted something from you, the simplest way is just to kindly and gently refuse the very next request that comes up. Take a look at how such a dialogue might look, for example. Your ex calls and says to you, "Listen, my dishwasher broke yesterday. Could you come over and see what happened?" Oh man, that's not good. But you know what? I've had a lot going on lately, so unfortunately I can't help you with that right now. The ex tries blackmail. "You said you loved me and now you won't even help me with a stupid dishwasher? I'll have fond memories of our relationship for a long time, but now I've decided to move forward and live my own life. I don't intend to cut you off or pretend I don't know you, but you have to accept that I won't be helping you with everything all the time like I used to." As you can see, you have to show maximum calm, assertively say you won't help anymore, while trying your best to soften that hostility, and absolutely not let yourself get dragged into this emotional blackmail from your ex. Sometimes you might even hear a threat like, "Fine, if you don't help me, then I'm never going to speak to you ever again." And to that, you also have to respond calmly but firmly. "Okay, I'm sorry to hear that our relationship depends on whether I help you or not, but thank you for at least being honest with me. In that case, all that's left for me is to say goodbye." This kind of hostility that comes from an ex when you suddenly stop helping with something, or that person even feels like they're losing you, that you're just not that interested anymore. This is a very common phenomenon, and it's really worth preparing for it and setting your mind that you cannot give into it. If you show in any way, "Okay, fine, I'll come help you after all," then you've lost, and you'll be a pushover again instead of an attractive guy who respects his own boundaries. Because you behave this way, your ex doesn't want to have anything to do with you. Only when you set clear boundaries will your attractiveness be able to start growing again. And I'm well aware that a moment like this is something terrible, something even terrifying, that it's hard to get through it. So let me show you a story of a client of mine I worked with once who experienced exactly this and who skillfully got out of it, which is why this story ended in success. This all happened years ago. This was a woman who went abroad, met another man in the apartment she was renting, fell in love with him, and they were together for quite a long time. However, at some point that relationship fell apart. Let's call her Magda. Magda made quite a few mistakes, and she tried to get him back on her own for a long time, but it just kept getting worse and worse, so she finally found me. Back then, I was still personally doing a lot of consultations, and she told me her whole story. I prepared a strategy for her, and the first step, of course, was becoming a challenge. And it got a little better. There was some closeness, but basically, unfortunately, it wasn't moving forward, because it ended up with them still being together, but not in a relationship. Because initially it came to the point where they were sleeping together all the time, but they weren't in a relationship. That, of course, wasn't what Magda was after. That's why we had to take a step back. And Magda, first of all, moved out of that apartment, started looking for another location, but she still worked with that man in the same company, so they still had quite a bit of contact. And besides that, we also worked with an element of jealousy. And Magda simply put her profile on a dating site. She started dating a bit here and there, and every once in a while she'd even meet up with someone. When that guy got word that Magda had started seeing someone, he didn't have any additional details. He was just convinced that she'd found someone or that something new was starting. Then, at one point, he actually demanded that she end that relationship immediately, because if not, he would never even say another word to her again. So this shows how strongly he believed that she's actually still in love with him the whole time. And it was only when Magda calmly told him straight out something like, "Look, of course I'm not going to end this relationship. I don't even intend to explain what, with whom, or where. Even if I were in a relationship, I'd be even less likely to end it. You have to accept that we're not together anymore, and we won't be together. And you have to move on with your life and, find someone else too." It was only when Magda actually showed him point blank that she's no longer interested in him, that she could start a new relationship at any time, fall in love, and he could really, really lose her. She even encouraged him to start seeing someone else himself. That was a total breakthrough, where he started trying his absolute hardest again. And when finally that challenge frame was so strong, it hit his feelings so hard that initially, after a few days of silence where he sort of said goodbye and said, fine, it's over, we'll never see each other again. But from what I remember, about a week went by before he showed up with flowers and apologized to her for doing something like that. He asked her for another chance. He realized how much she still loved her and so on. And of course, Magda couldn't agree to that because it would show again that she was actually very easy to win over. But it was a really good starting point to hold him off a bit, to let him sit in that uncertainty, because that uncertainty deepened his feelings, and he fell in love more and more, and more and more, and more and more. And Magda could give more and more, give more of herself, until they finally got back together. And he was the one who was really fully committed. And that's exactly why this story had a happy ending and the couple got back together. Now, what about the situation where you've been paying for various things for your ex up until now? The first option is to have a simple conversation where you say it directly, but actually it's enough to just send her a message, an email, a text, a message on WhatsApp, Facebook, anywhere where you briefly describe what you've decided. For example, I'm just cleaning up my budget and I just discovered that I've been paying for X all this time, and that X is your ex's bills. I've canceled those automatic transfers, so I'm letting you know that you'll have to handle that yourself now. And that's it. Without much explanation. Simple, logical. You have no obligation, moral or otherwise, to keep paying for your ex. What's more, sending a message like that is often the perfect way to show your ex that you're becoming a challenge. If, however, you'd like our help in getting that person back and want us to lead you by the hand through the whole process, teaching you all the most important things, then go to the website institutezviaskov.pl right now and book your first free consultation, where we'll assess your specific situation and show you exactly how we can help you, provided you qualify. And that's all for now. Thanks for being with me. Robert Marchell, instituteofrelationships.pl.